What's up, average dad fans? Welcome back to another video, and I have the Samsung S25 Edge. Anyone that has watched my channel will know that me and Samsung have a tumultuous relationship. Well, today I want to give you my thoughts, feelings, opinions, and overall honest review of the Samsung S25 Edge. Samsung Knights, you might enjoy this one. Let's go. So firstly, let me just say a massive happy Father's Day to everyone out there. In the UK, it's Father's Day. I'm aware that in other countries, including the US, Father's Day is on a different day, but happy Father's Day to you as well. Now, the S25 Edge. I am going to do this thoughts, opinions, review in a very different way. I am going to take the approach, and bear with me here, that this phone is £700. And I know that sounds fucking mental, because the phone's not £700. The phone is £1,100 here in the UK or $1,100 in the US. Hey folks, so I was just getting some B-roll from the Samsung website to add in to this video. Just simple B-roll showing the price of £1,099 on the Samsung UK site. And it's fucking £1,200. So every single point I make in this video still stands, but even worse. £1,199. Anyway, here's that B-roll of that price, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the video. But in this video, I mentioned the price of £1,100 a lot. Just replace that with £1,200. Wow. And if I was to base my thoughts and feelings and impressions and review solely based on that price tag, then I wouldn't be recommending this to basically anyone. I would be sticking true to what I said in a previous video by calling this a scam, because it's a dual camera 3900 milliamp hour battery with an inferior screen to the S25 Ultra, yet they're charging S25 Ultra prices. So no matter how much you comment that it's not a scam, or you try and justify the price by saying, but it's really thin, you're just wrong on so many levels. However, as I said, my impressions and thoughts and feelings are based on this being £700, which is exactly where this phone should have been priced, in my opinion, because that is where the specs warrant it to be. So, from now on, again, let's just suspend reality and assume it is that price. Now, I'm actually aware it's not too far out the realms of reality. If you buy from Samsung UK or Samsung US and do a trade-in and use a discount code and bribe the Pope or something, you can probably pick this up for around £700. It's just not the official launch price. And it's also the thing that every single review I have watched on this phone, the reviewer just fails to mention. They just fail to mention that the price just is not right. So, first things first, taking this phone out the box and holding it for the first time was, I cannot lie, a truly mind-blowing experience. Because not since, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago have we held phones as thin as this. And that wasn't because the design team wanted them to be so thin back then. It was just because they didn't have big batteries. They didn't have all the technology, the motherboards, the CPU power that we have nowadays, the wireless charging, the camera systems. So they were made thin because that's just all they had to be. As phones have progressed and technology has progressed, we've got thicker phones. And trust me, That is for a good reason. While 8.2mm is thicker than the 6mm of this, for the sacrifices you're making between a true flagship and this, you're going to want to take that extra 2mm thickness every single day of the week. But nonetheless, holding this phone was mind-blowing. The design of this phone in that silver colour I have, I believe there's a black variant available as well, with the titanium rails, it does look super, super premium. And I like the camera bump. Yes, I know I always talk about a large circular centered camera bump, but when we're only talking about a dual camera system, there's zero need for a massive camera bump. So the subtlety of this phone and overall design, I absolutely love. And in terms of wow factor, head turner, whoever I have shown this phone to or let hold, they have all said the same thing. Jesus, this is so thin, or this is so light. So for that, Samsung, congratulations. You have been the first to implement this. And yes, we all know Apple are bringing out the iPhone Air in just a couple of months, which will kind of replicate the thickness of this phone, but like Huawei with the trifold, Samsung, kudos for being the first of many manufacturers that will create an ultra-thin phone. And the good news doesn't stop there from when you take it out the box, because the next thing you have to do is set it up. And it's a Samsung with the latest One UI software on Android 15. So setting up this phone, if you've got an old Samsung, an old Android device, takes minutes. And it's all done. All your passwords, all your information, your data, your photos, your iCloud information, your notes, everything's just there. And it's easy. And One UI is as pristine as it ever has been. I would argue this is the most polished and complete One UI has been, because straight out the box, you've got a continuous scrolling app drawer rather than having to flick side to side. Just little touches with the Mission Control Center and the quick tabs for me, I really like. One side notifications, one side quick settings. It just works the same as most other phones, but with a much more polished approach. And then of course the customization when you have got it fully set up through the normal wallpaper settings with generative AI or the Good Lock app from the native Galaxy Store. One UI we don't have to hark on about, as we all know, is probably the best Android skin that has ever been. Now I do have to say, it is at this point though, when you're setting up the phone, because you're using it for the first time, this is where the first kind of downside for me comes. If you're going to create a flagship phone at that flagship price, why not just make it the same screen as the S25 Ultra? You've made it 120Hz, you've made it Quad HD+, you've made it 2600 nits of peak brightness. It is a stunning display, but you never went that like one tiny step further and added the anti-reflective coating. That for me anyway makes the S25 Ultra just stand head and shoulders above others in terms of display. But Samsung didn't do that with the Edge. They've gone for their amazing, stunning display, but it's as reflective as any other Android phone, so it doesn't then stand out. Now I want to talk about the things that happen during your general use. So using this phone to watch media. As mentioned, the display is fantastic. The tiny hole punch cutout, that's the way I want it. I don't need a big massive capsule or dynamic island. Just a hole punch is fine for me. I certainly don't want the bezels at the top and bottom that the Sony Xperia gives me. But what I do want when consuming media, if I don't have my headphones with me, if I am in the shower, if I am cooking or doing something in the kitchen, like the dishes, yes, men, you should be doing the dishes at some point too, I want to listen to the phone. I want to listen to the native speakers on the phone. And through simple physics, the speakers on this phone are not good. They're not horrendous, they're just definitely not good. And I'm so used to doing the speaker tests over the YouTube videos, but they just don't do it justice. So unfortunately, there's no point in me letting you hear it, because all you're going to hear is whatever your speakers tell you. You just have to take my word and other reviewers' words for it that the speakers are not flagship. Now, moving on from the display and speakers, we are going to have to talk about cameras. And this is, again, another really frustrating aspect of the Edge that only compounds the frustration because of the price tag. If I'm doing this review at a £700 phone, I'd be giving these cameras like a 9 out of 10 rating because a 200 megapixel wide angle lens is fantastic. The ultra wide angle, while not the 50 megapixel, still produces really accurate and lifelike ultra wides with really, really little distortion right around the edges. I'm fine with that. And of course, the cropped in 2x optical is all you're going to get in terms of optical zoom, because it doesn't have a telephoto or periscope zoom lens. But their competitors, like the standard iPhone, like the standard Google Pixel, like the standard Xiaomi phones and Oppo phones that aren't Pro or Ultra variants, they have dual cameras, so it would be compared against them. But because of the reality price tag that this has of £1,100, this is just not good. You can't put a dual camera system on a phone that costs more than my Vivo X200 Ultra. 1TB version. Yes, the 1TB Vivo X200 Ultra is cheaper than the 256GB Samsung Edge. And folks, the camera system on this is numero un. Recently, I done a comparison video between this and the Sony Xperia 1 Mark VII. I kept the Vivo in its vivid Zeiss mode, which a lot of you commented about, and I get it, but I left it in that mode because that's the style of pictures I like. I like more vibrant, ready to share pictures. I should have, for a strict comparison, put it in natural mode. But when it comes to this versus a Samsung, or just talking about the Samsung, you don't really get that option. There isn't the Zeiss partnership. There isn't different modes you can pick from. Yes, you can do different styles like black and white, but it's just a limited camera experience, both in terms of hardware and software. If you're going to get charged over £1,000 for any smartphone on the planet, there has to be at least a 3x optical telephoto zoom lens in there. They could have just taken the kind of subpar 3x optical from the Z Fold lineup and stuck it in there, because again, the camera bump is thick. The phone itself is thin, but there's still an extra camera bump there. They could have fit it in, but they didn't, to keep costs down and ultimately maximise the profit margin. So cameras, as mentioned, you've seen the examples. Macro, ultra wide, wide, 2x optical, A-OK. But digital zoom up to a maximum of 10x, just not impressed. Now, moving on to the other elephant in the room, battery. The S25 Edge has a 3900 mAh battery, but I'm going to be kind to Samsung here because, as I mentioned at the top of the video, they're the first to bring out an ultra-thin phone in modern times. So don't bash them too much until we see Honor and Xiaomi and Vivo and all the other manufacturers bring out their version of ultra-thin phones. Because while 3900 mAh is not great, maybe that's just near the limitations of a 6mm thick phone. And no, they did not use silicon carbon. They have their reasons for that, but even a silicon carbon battery, there's other components that go inside the phone. Jerry Rig Everything's done his video, you can see that. It's not just about the battery that decides the thickness. You have a USB port that you have to fit in there. You have speakers, you have the motherboard, the chipset, cameras, you've got loads of stuff in there, so it's not just dictated by the battery. But it does feel to me that the 4400 mAh fit inside the Z Fold, or the dual batteries fit inside those. Maybe they could have worked something out to extend the battery. But ultimately, what does it mean? What's 3900 mAh on a Quad HD plus 120Hz resolution screen? Well, it's about 7 hours of screen on time. which for most means a full day of battery. So it depends which line you're taking. What perspective are you bringing to battery? Do you want a full day phone that doesn't give you anxiety by the end of the day? The S25 Edge is still that phone. Now granted, it'll be down to about 10 or 20% depending on your usage by the end of the day if you've charged it overnight. But that's okay. But if your perspective is you want the largest battery because you want to have a 2-day phone and game to your heart's content, then no, that's not the approach they've taken. The Snapdragon Elite chip is efficient, but it ain't magic. It can't bring 2 days of battery life from just 3900 milliamp hours. So in terms of battery, I'm going to err on the side that I'm impressed what Samsung can do with such a thin phone. Until other manufacturers come out with bigger batteries on thin phones, I don't think we can be too harsh here. I think we have to be fair. So I guess well done Samsung, because I'm getting a full day of fairly heavy use from my S25 Edge. And that's using some 8K, 4K video, setting up the phone, which is a really intensive process. And very, very quickly, heat dissipation wise, the phone's never got hot while charging or using on 4K, 8K video. So yeah, I think Samsung have done well in terms of the heat dissipation as well from such a thin body. Now this is the Average Dad channel, and I do have the Average Dad tech store, and I do sell Chinese ROM phones. So in most videos I have to tell you what works, what doesn't work, any workarounds or fixes. In Samsung videos, I don't have to do that. This is Samsung, this is global, everything will work. Your Galaxy Watch is instantly going to pair, your Galaxy Ring, or any other Wear OS watch, or any other Android device. It's seamless. There's nothing in terms of workarounds you have to do with this device. So I just wanted to get that in there because regular viewers will be potentially wondering if this is a Chinese version. No, it doesn't exist. They're all global versions. But no, to answer any other questions about the store, I will not be stocking the S25 Edge because the price to me just does not make sense. Have a peruse though. I do have many, many other phones, including some other Samsungs where the price does make more sense. So now I just want to summarise my thoughts, opinions, feelings about the £700 S25 Edge. I could highly recommend this to lots of people, excluding professional photographers or videographers and hardcore gamers. Other than those two categories, this phone will blow your mind and will do everything you want it to do. And every time you hold it, it's going to feel just nice. It's not often nowadays with the usual candy bar slab phones that something just feels different and nice in the hand. The Edge feels the most premium of any candy bar phone I have ever held, purely because it's different. And it feels sturdy. This thing ain't going to bend. Durability is fantastic. Gorilla Glass Victus 2, all the good stuff, and the titanium rail. So you don't have to worry about durability with this device. And for a £700 device, the camera system's really good. Could have done with a little telephoto lens on there, just a 3x, but the 2x crop is fine. Battery optimization, the Snapdragon Elite chip, all really, really good. This is a full day battery life phone. Now, let's just flip that on its head and say, the reality is, this is an £1,100 phone. So who do I then recommend it to? Not many people. Because for 750, 800, 900, 1000, 1100, you can get how many? Like 10, 20, 30, even 40 better Android candy bar phones for that money. Global, not just Chinese. The Oppo X8 Pro or the Vivo X200 Pro are both global and both come in about £200 cheaper than the S25 Edge. And they both have double the storage. The only difference being they're not as thin. But the Vivo does have one of the world's best triple camera setups, a 6000 milliamp hour battery. So yeah, what do you want? Cut off 2mm and spend more money, or keep the 2mm and spend less money for twice the phone? This has always been the dilemma with the Edge. I knew I was going to enjoy using, holding, looking at the device. What has surprised me is how well the battery and optimization is holding up. Also, what surprised me is, as mentioned, the cameras are good. But what hasn't surprised me is my initial thoughts. This is too damn expensive in real life compared to what else is available on the market. And for all the Samsung Knights and Samsung supporters, listen, again, this is not a Samsung bashing video. Please, please watch this video again with your listening ears on. I really love this device. I really, really do. The only one big issue is with the price. So please do not start commenting saying, oh, you're biased or this or that. It's not. I love this. The biggest frustration for me is Samsung, and I'll say it as well, and Apple, even before they've released the device, have such massive profits that they could, in theory, cut their profit margin in half with the Edge or the Air coming out with Apple. So they could make the Edge somewhere closer to £800 just to test the market, just to see what the reception is. But they don't do that. They try and squeeze out every single penny from loyal customers, and I just don't agree with it. So you can say I'm biased, you can say I've been unfair to Samsung, which I strongly don't believe I have, because I'm telling you I love the device. But the one thing I'm never going to change is my opinion that Samsung are taking advantage of their brand name and their loyal customer base. And I don't pin that on you, I pin that on Samsung. As I like to do with all my reviews, whether I stock the phone on the store or not has no bearing to what I'm going to tell you in a video, because my word, my name, my reputation means more to me than a bit extra profit. Can the same be said for Samsung? Thank you all so much for watching, and again, a massive happy Father's Day. I know we're not always top of the pecking order, us dads, but we do try, as much as we might be forgetful. I'll be back soon with the unboxing and setup video of the Huawei MateBook Fold, the world's first 18-inch folding laptop with Windows 11 able to be installed, which is kind of game-changing for Huawei. Until then,